Then fill up our friend's glass and let the ace be played quietly.
Dirk Bogarde wasn't just Britain's most bankable film star of the 1950s. He was something far more complex, an actor hiding in plain sight. With matinee idol looks and a string of box office hits, he seemed like the perfect gentleman. But behind the polished image was a man carrying secrets he couldn't share. This is the story of Dirk Bogarde, the war hero turned movie star who lived two lives. He built a career on control of his image, his voice, his emotions. But off-screen, he was anything but free. Bogarde lived in an era where truth could cost you everything, especially if that truth went against the laws of the time. He smiled for the camera, shook hands at premieres, and charmed audiences with a quiet charisma. But when the lights went off, the real story began. His life was a constant balancing act between fame and privacy, between survival and authenticity. And though many never knew it, he was quietly rewriting what it meant to be a leading man, not just in front of the camera, but behind closed doors. Dirk's story isn't just about what he did, it's about what he couldn't say. From Derek to Dirk, before the world knew him as Dirk Bogarde, he was Derek van den Bogaerde, a boy born in 1921 to a distant father and controlling mother. His home life was cold, and from a young age, he retreated into books and imagination. Acting became his escape. He studied at art school, then began working in theater, slowly building toward a film career until the war stopped everything. His upbringing in London's suburbs was filled with discipline and little warmth. His father was a journalist, respected but emotionally removed. His mother was strict, often critical, pushing young Derek toward perfection. These early dynamics shaped him. He became introspective, observant, and quietly determined. He spent hours alone, drawing, reading, and daydreaming about other worlds. Though his parents didn't encourage performance, he felt drawn to storytelling. The stage was where he could be someone else, anyone else. Even his name would later change, shedding the Dutch-sounding Van den Bogaerde for something smoother, more palatable to audiences. Becoming Dirk Bogarde wasn't just branding, it was the beginning of a lifelong act. But before he could step into the spotlight, war came calling, and the real world tore through the fantasy. War and trauma. World War II reshaped him. He served as an intelligence officer, tasked with selecting bombing targets, decisions that weighed heavily. But the worst moment came at war's end, when his unit entered Bergen-Belsen, a concentration camp. The horrors he saw never left him. They haunted his dreams and bled into his later performances. The war had changed him, and now he would change British cinema. His wartime service was marked by quiet courage. Bogarde rarely spoke about his military experience, but when he did, the emotion was raw. He described the bodies, the starvation, the inhumanity, scenes that seared into his mind. He said Bergen-Belsen made him a different person, a more serious man. He would never again see life the same way. These memories shaped his worldview and deepened his performances. That haunted gaze, the one fans couldn't quite place, wasn't acting. It was memory. After the war, he returned to civilian life with a solemn maturity that set him apart from his peers. While others sought stardom for glamour, Bogarde pursued it with a quiet intensity. He wasn't trying to be famous. He was trying to express something honest in a world that often demanded lies. Reluctant star. In 1954, Doctor in the House turned him into a star. Audiences fell for his quiet charm, and studios cast him as the perfect bachelor. But the fame suffocated him. Bogarde hated the lies. He was already living with a man, Anthony Forwood. But in the 1950s, Britain, that truth could end his career. So he smiled for cameras, posed with female co-stars, and kept his real life a secret. The press followed him closely. Gossip columns speculated about who he was dating. Women sent love letters by the hundreds. But the reality was more private and more fragile. Bogarde couldn't tell the truth, not if he wanted to work again. Homosexuality was illegal. Careers were destroyed, reputations ruined. One misstep could lead to arrest, scandal, or worse. He learned to lie with grace. Public events were calculated, photographs were staged, even interviews were filled with vague answers and rehearsed charm, but the pressure was relentless. He once admitted he felt like he was being hunted by his own image, trapped inside the fantasy that others wanted to believe. It was a lonely position. He had what most actors craved: success, money, fame, but he also had a secret that made it all feel hollow: hidden love. For nearly 4 decades, Bogarde and Forwood shared a home, a life, and a quiet kind of love. To the public, they were just close friends, but behind closed doors, they were everything to each other. Bogarde never confirmed his sexuality. He knew one wrong word could destroy everything. Instead, he poured his truth into the roles he chose: characters who suffered, who hid, who longed for freedom. Their life together was domestic, peaceful, and fiercely protected. They lived in seclusion, away from the Hollywood spotlight. Friends knew, some colleagues suspected, but the press never got a firm story, and that's how Bogarde wanted it. He once said that keeping something for himself was the only way he could survive the attention. Forwood handled many of Bogarde's business affairs, serving as his manager, confidant, and emotional anchor. Their bond was deep, but because of the times, they couldn't celebrate anniversaries or speak openly about their love. Every day was a balancing act, and for Bogarde, every performance became a coded confession. His films told the stories he couldn't. The tension, the longing, the sadness. It was real. It wasn't just acting. It was the only way he could speak freely. Victim, and a risk that could ruin him. In 1961, Bogarde took a huge risk. He starred in Victim, playing a lawyer being blackmailed for a secret relationship with a man. It was the first British film to openly tackle the criminalization of homosexuality. Censors pushed back. Critics were stunned, but Bogarde's performance was brave, raw, and deeply personal. The film helped shift public opinion and hinted at the truth he still couldn't say. It was a career-defining gamble. No other major actor in Britain had dared to take on such a role. At the time, even acknowledging same-gender relationships on screen was considered scandalous. But Bogarde believed in the story. He believed it needed to be told. He later admitted that the script didn't need much acting because it mirrored so much of his own life. Every line felt like a whisper from his own truth. The film was met with controversy, but also admiration. Viewers who had never seen their reality reflected in media suddenly felt seen. Activists credited Victim with helping shift the public mood. It didn't just entertain, it educated. It shook the foundations of polite society and forced a conversation. And still, Bogarde didn't break his silence. He didn't need to. His performance had already said everything. Embracing darkness in film. In the 1960s and 70s, Bogarde turned his back on mainstream fame. He left Britain, moved to France with Forwood, and chose darker, more complex roles. In The Night Porter and The Servant, he explored themes of control, repression, and trauma. These weren't easy films, but they told the truth about what it meant to live with secrets. And Bogarde had lived that for years. His decision to move away from commercial cinema wasn't about rebellion, it was about honesty. Bogarde no longer wanted to play the smiling romantic. He wanted to explore pain, obsession, power. The Night Porter delved into disturbing territory featuring psychological tension that mirrored his own internal struggles. Critics were divided, but he didn't care. He was no longer interested in applause. He was searching for truth, even if it made audiences uncomfortable. These roles allowed him to let the shadows breathe. They allowed him to examine what it meant to be trapped by trauma, by memory, by identity. He didn't want to be adored. He wanted to be understood. And in these roles, he revealed more of himself than any interview ever could. The Writer's Mask. Later in life, Bogarde found success as a novelist and memoirist. But even in his books, he was careful. He never admitted the nature of his relationship with Forwood. He used vague language, companion, loyal friend. He chose privacy over confession. When Forwood grew ill, Bogarde cared for him until the end. After that, he advocated for end-of-life choice, driven by what he had witnessed. His writing style was elegant and restrained, just like his public persona. In memoirs such as A Postilion, Struck by Lightning, readers searched for answers between the lines. But he never gave anything away. Bogarde's words hinted at love, grief, and devotion, but stopped short of full disclosure. After Forwood's passing in 1988, Bogarde was devastated. He had lost not just a partner, but the one person who truly knew him. Watching Forwood's long decline made him furious at the lack of compassion in medicine. He became an outspoken advocate for the right to die with dignity, a topic as personal as it was political. He didn't care if it was controversial. He had nothing left to hide, but still everything to protect. Even in grief, he guarded their truth. Final years and legacy. A stroke in 1996 left Bogarde partially paralyzed. He withdrew from public life, his secret still guarded. Before his death in 1999, he destroyed personal letters and diaries. He didn't want others rewriting his story. Yet, even in silence, his legacy spoke volumes. He changed how men were portrayed on screen, and without ever saying the words, he helped push Britain toward tolerance. His final years were quiet and reflective. He refused most interviews, appearing only when necessary, and even then, choosing his words with care. Bogarde was still fiercely private. He had always believed that mystery gave actors power, and he clung to that belief until the end. As his health declined, he gave instructions to destroy correspondence, journals, and manuscripts. He wanted the facts of his private life to remain his own. Despite this, tributes poured in after his death. Colleagues praised his courage. Fans remembered the strength behind the softness. Though his name slowly faded from headlines, his impact didn't. In an era where celebrity lives are broadcast daily, Bogarde's choice to remain silent became its own form of rebellion. His life was his own, even when the world wanted to claim it. The man behind the curtain. Dirk Bogarde's life was defined by duality. He played roles for a living, and in real life, he played one more, not out of shame, but survival. He was a man of principle, courage, and complexity. He helped change a country simply by living as he did, with restraint, strength, and quiet truth. Today, Dirk Bogarde is remembered not just for his performances, but for his quiet defiance. In a time when speaking the truth could destroy you, he chose to live it, carefully, silently, but consistently. He told stories that made people think. He played characters that reflected the pain of secrets. And in doing so, he gave countless others the courage to accept their own. Bogarde never came out, never gave interviews about his private life, and never stood on a platform. But he didn't need to. His work spoke for him. His life proved that sometimes the strongest voice is the one that never raises. Was Dirk Bogarde a silent hero, or just a man doing what he had to? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you're drawn to the hidden lives of Hollywood legends, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't miss our next story, where the truth is always deeper than the spotlight shows.